Welcome to Shades of Us. I'm your host, Daryl Brown.
As parts of the world begin to open up after the pandemic, more and more people are looking to start traveling again. Coming up, 4 Black travelers reflect on the experience of going abroad. According to a study by NAFSA, Association of International Educators, during the 2018 to 2019 school year, of the more than 300,000 students who studied abroad, 31% identified as racial or ethnic minorities.
For many, a love of travel begins in their junior year of college when they study abroad. For Black students, Dr. Keisha Abraham thinks it's especially important to take advantage of that American rite of passage.
I'm Dr. Keisha Abraham. I am the president and lead consultant at the Abraham Consulting Agency, where we help you use your agency to make positive social change in education abroad. I think it's one of the most cringeworthy experiences for many students of color, the family tree. That wonderful moment in elementary school when the teacher just asks you to fill in all this information without thinking about origin stories or relationship to migration histories and just narratives. So my family wasn't able to complete a lot of the pieces on the tree. I won't say that it gave me some kind of a complex growing up. It definitely sparked a sense of curiosity in me. I remember telling my parents when I was like 10 that I was going to go and live in South Africa because I wanted to fight against apartheid. I started reading about apartheid because I was growing up during an age in which the younger people in South Africa were the ones kind of leading this charge. And it just fascinated me so much. And I kept thinking, what would I be different? How would I be different in the world if I knew more about my roots? What would I know differently? How would I be in the world with more agency and more awareness of myself? What would be different if I just knew more about the past? I think one of the pieces about cultural equity when it comes to specifically global education is that traditionally, I think people have thought about inclusion as a thing that everyone's supposed to be grateful for, to put it really plainly. I think that there's this sense that there is the way that the West sees the world, and the people of color, marginalized populations, are to be grateful that they have access to it, more and more access to it now, and kind of get in, come on in to the classes and to the programs we already have and find a space. But for me, that's not cultural equity, like at all, because it's saying, I'm supposed to bend and fit all of this, all of this, right, into a model that wasn't designed for all of this. In addition to being raised by educators, I was also raised by people who really understood what an inclusive, empowering educational space can do for you. My parents had gone to HBCUs for undergraduates, those are historically Black colleges, but they had also gone to predominantly white or traditionally white institutions for graduate school. And so they were very clear about psychosocial development. Where might give me the best sense of roots? Spelman College was the only place that could have grown me into the woman that I am today. I know this for a fact. So many years ago, and I still feel the sensation of the first step I took on that campus. The minute I arrived, there was a young lady inside the campus gate, and she said, "Hi, sister. Where are you going? Are you new here? Are you coming to Spelman?" I remember standing by this big tree, looking at this beautiful campus and feeling the sense literally from my feet, in my feet, that I was home. And I have never, ever looked back from that decision. It was the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. We have to broaden our thinking to be more inclusive about who sees the world, who gets to teach about the world, what perspectives about the world do we get to see from, what are our different viewpoints, and how can we learn together? What are some different versions of our histories? What are some different versions of our intersections? What are some different versions of our origin stories even? Not every institution is putting that kind of emphasis on making sure that you feel whole and safe as a woman of color in the world. And not all students have the same kind of awareness about each other in America. And so the challenge I'm speaking to is the challenge that comes from the intersections of different kinds of Americanness that happen in a study abroad context that we also need to be prepared for, that we also need to build for, that we also need to plan for both going into it, during the experience abroad, and on reentry. So my advice for a young person who may or may not have thought about studying abroad is that it is absolutely necessary. Young, old, or anywhere in between, I honestly believe, without a doubt, that you have not finished your educational journey, likely not even genuinely started it, until you have seen yourself elsewhere. Until you have given yourself the opportunity to imagine yourself and realize yourself without any of the stories, without any of the impositions, without any of the suppositions, without any of the expectations that exist in your current situation or circumstances, that you get a chance to experience yourself free of any stories of who you were. You get to recreate yourself abroad in a way, deepen your understanding of yourself and the world. Every day you have a choice of how you use your agency in your interpersonal experiences, your intercultural encounters while you're abroad. We have this all the time while we're at home as well, but when you're abroad, I think your understanding of yourself as an agent for change really has an opportunity to grow.
Next, we meet another female world traveler. Adelia Aborjade uses her online voice to focus primarily on getting more Black women out in the world. Let's hear what she has to say.
I have incurable wanderlust. I've always enjoyed experiencing and studying other cultures. I'm Adelia Aborjade, and I like traveling outside the United States. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, born and raised for the first 41 years of my life. I always traveled, even when I was a teacher in the States, because I was a geography teacher. How am I going to teach about different places and I haven't been there? My first position outside the United States was at a small international school in Honduras. When I finally retired in June of 2020, I think I had total 23 years of experience. I am what some people refer to as a financial life coach. I specialize in working with women who want to travel abroad but need assistance handling the financial piece of that. My website is called Picky Girl Travels the World because I am the picky girl. I'm picky about how I spend my time, the kind of energy I surround myself with, how I spend my money. I only want to invest in companies and people who are doing good things. I felt the need to get more Black women traveling, to share that, to demystify that process, primarily because of something I saw on the internet once about be the person you needed when you were younger. I think my life might have been a little different or maybe a little easier had I had an example, had I had someone who looked like me, who could show me this kind of life was possible. For basically the first half of my life, I lived for other people. I lived for society's expectations. I used to be married. I put my husband's desires and wants above my own. I sacrificed things for my children. I put my happiness last. When I decided to switch up things and change my life, that's very much the philosophy that I embraced. I am going to live a life that defies convention. I am always, if given the opportunity, going to choose adventure over the mundane. And my number one goal is to absolutely regret nothing. I've met some incredible Black women throughout my travels. It's very common that if you accepted in the travel community, that if you know some places you're going to go, you seek out the Black Facebook groups for those areas, whether it's expats or travelers. I have found that people have been very open, very welcoming. Iceland is incredibly beautiful. The highlight of my trip was I got to stand on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge where the two plates diverge from. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It's one of those places that even though it's small and everybody there is practically related, they all look alike. And so I did stand out. Traveling as much as I have and experiencing other cultures makes me a little bit conflicted about American culture, because it's very easy to see or to get validation that no, even though I was born in the United States, I never really fit into that culture. In the wake of what was happening with George Floyd, I've often been in other countries around the world. I was in China at the beginning of the pandemic. China had closed its borders. There then began a shift, this idea that COVID was coming into China with foreigners, particularly African foreigners. We saw that anti-foreigner thing spread throughout the country. I think it was a little eye-opening for white foreigners in China, because they started to experience some of the treatment those of us who were non-white were already experiencing. I'm currently living in Mexico, specifically Mexico City, which is my absolute most favorite place in the world. Here in Mexico, I'm an admin in the Brothers and Sisters in Mexico City Facebook group, and we get people who drop into town and want to connect. We talk about everything from the place we are, where are you staying? Make sure you go see this, you get tips, what foods you need to try. It's like going someplace and, like having a cousin or somebody in town. It's very much a community, even though it's spread all across the world. My family's small, but my youngest daughter actually lived with me in Honduras for a year, and I think that did a lot for opening up her worldview. I think maybe when she's finished college, she would not bat an eye at spending significant amounts of time outside the United States. My older daughter is not quite that open. One of the reasons I initially started my blog was I thought about, when I die, what if my kids never know the things that I've done, or they don't have those examples? And that then transformed into kind of serving as a mentor or a guide for other Black women wanting to do the same. But very much I wanted my children to see that there is so much more possible than what society tells you is possible for a Black woman in the United States.
According to a 2013 study on health, men who did not take an annual vacation were shown to have a 30% greater risk of death from heart disease. Benefits of travel are almost immediate. After only a day or two, 89% of respondents saw significant drops in stress.
Documenting adventures around the world can be fun and educational to those who need it most. Eric Prince, a travel journalist, has established a path for low-income students to experience what travel is like, and through the eyes of a Black man.
Empowerment plays the primary role in my adventures abroad. It's pure, absolute freedom. My name is Eric Prince. I'm founder of MinorityNomad.com, a website where I document my adventures around the world, including on social media. I've been traveling the world as a full-time travel journalist for about 8 or 9 years. For me, I'm 38 now. My work these days primarily focuses on my photography. I started MinorityNomad.com as a gateway for young, low-income students to experience what travel is like through the eyes of a Black man. What inspired me to travel really was seeing it. I grew up on National Geographic magazines and Reader's Digest. Cleveland is a very multicultural city, so I grew up meeting Arabs, Asians, people from Central and Eastern Europe. I grew up on baklava and pierogies. I wanted to see where all these people, all these cuisines, all these landscapes were from. Cleveland's a very poor city. For a lot of people, Cleveland's still a very difficult and rough place. But I never grew up with this idea that I couldn't travel the world. For me though, I didn't see how to do it. There was no blueprint. There was nobody like me doing it. So the US military was the only option that I saw to be able to explore and see more of the world. I was in the United States Air Force for 10 and a half years. So I joined the US military in January of 2001. I served in Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan and Iraq and Afghanistan and interacted with the people and really learned like, wait a minute, this is not as scary as they told us. These people are just trying to live and survive. They're born into this situation, very similar as to the way I was born into the situation in Cleveland. As a civilian, it was around 2008, 2009 that I kind of began to explore. I switched from active duty to reserve status, so I had the opportunity to explore the world on my own. And the more that I explored and started to search for information, there was nobody like me. There was no Black man creating content, a substantial amount of content on places that I wanted to see. I believe that the reason you didn't see a lot of Black men documenting their travels back in the early days of this whole travel blogging thing was because we just didn't want our business out there. And it's the exact same reason you don't see a lot of Black men documenting it now. We travel differently than women. The Black travel journalist space is dominated by women. I started Minority Nomad in 2012. So my transition from travel journalism into philanthropy, it comes from this culture of giving back. Well, at least as Black men who grew up in the 80s, we were taught to always prepare the next generation to get them ready for what's to come. So A World Beyond Youth Exploration is my organization that we started to try to get as many young people of color abroad, studying abroad, living abroad, working abroad. You take one of these kids who grew up in Cleveland like me, or Detroit, or Compton, and you put them in Poland where they don't speak the language, where people do not look like them, where the food is entirely different, and you teach them. You give them an opportunity to develop that appreciation for other cultures, develop that empathy that a lot of us have beaten out of us growing up, and you can truly create global citizens. Part of my personal mission is to get the fee for passports in the United States greatly reduced for low-income peoples, if not canceled. We had to postpone everything until after COVID goes away, but we're looking forward to bringing back the organization. So my experience traveling around the world as a Black man made me realize a lot of us are a product of our environment and of a lack of exposure. So I carry myself to try to be the best representation of our community as I possibly can, because I know that a lot of times I'm the very first Black man people have met. It's such an empowering experience to open people's eyes to you beyond the color of your skin. One of my most popular YouTube videos is me in a small Romanian village called Slobozia. And we were barbecuing, we were drinking, we were dancing, we were listening to music. And when people watched that video, it was like, wait, they're just like us. Thailand's actually been my home for about 7 years. I've maintained a residence in Bangkok for that amount of time for when I'm off the road. I've been to 95 countries so far. And when people ask me about my experience as a Black man, I tell them what that is, but I also tell them the experience of other Black people in America. Because I was lucky. I'm not there anymore. I'm not in the struggle anymore. I've lived abroad for a decade now. Travel has been invaluable to my views on my identity as a person. It's opened me up to so many different things, from different cuisines to different partners, different adventures, different hobbies. It's given me an opportunity to truly experience the world. I'm trying to be a better version of myself every day. Every time I close out a video, I say, leave the world better than you found it. And that's what I try to do. When you're in a foreign country, when you're in a place that's not your home, if you go out of your way to try to be the best part of somebody else's day, it's not only gonna make your life better, it's not only gonna make that person's life better, but it's also gonna have ripple effects. I know a lot of people are nervous about getting out there again, but that's the beauty of travel. It should come with a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear, and a lot of excitement. The world will open back up again. It's just a matter of time. And I look forward to being part of it.
And finally, who said you had to be slim to travel the world? Jeff Jenkins encourages plus-size folks to travel through his travel blog.
My name is Jeff Jenkins. I'm an award-winning travel journalist and content creator, and I help chubby people travel the world. I started Chubby Diaries because I felt like there was a lack of accessibility, comfort, and community within the travel space. And me being a plus-size Black male, I was like, hey, I don't see anybody that looks like me in the travel industry. And so I was like, hey, how can I be the representation for a group of people, a marginalized group of people? Growing up, I didn't travel a lot internationally, and the few trips that we did take, they were always in a car, and it was like long car rides. But growing up in Orlando, Florida, my dad was a chef, so I always got to go into Disney World for free, even as a little kid. And I really did feel like that's where I got to meet a lot of amazing people from all over the world and even around the nation. And I really do think that sparked my interest in like learning more about different cultures and getting out there internationally as I got older. It was the summer after my freshman year. I met my friend Jasmine, and she was like, hey, I'm going into Japan. And I was like, well, I want to do that. And she told me about this program called Camp Adventure, and which is a program where they took college students and we got to work on American military bases. And that was my first time ever actually getting on an airplane. And I went all the way from Tallahassee to Tokyo, Japan. Literally, it was like I got off the airplane and they thought I was like a football player or I was a sumo wrestler. And I even remember the first time being like compared to a sumo wrestler. And I was almost offended by it at first. And it played with me a little bit. But then when I found out how sumo wrestlers in Japan are even considered like gods in some ways, and just their athletic ability and who they are, that really, really made me be like, oh, okay, well, I'm cool with it. Being a plus size Black male, American male in other countries and like visiting these countries, I mean, I've gotten my fair share of stares. I've gotten poked. Like people, like guys have come up to me in Thailand and like grabbed my love handle just to touch it. Even being in Rwanda, where a lot of people are considered, are very like thin. For me, I was like one of the biggest people they've ever saw before because I went to like this more remote area in Rwanda, and like the kids would just come up to me and like literally like touch me just because they haven't seen anybody my size before. But I've also found that people think that I'm rich in a lot of these places. In multiple African countries I've been to, just my size alone, people have the notion that I must be rich. There's a lot of plus size people in America. I think it's 42% of the people in America are considered obese. One of my family members asked me like, well, when starting Chubby Diaries, he was like, hey, why don't you just teach people to lose weight? And I was like, well, there's so many other platforms out there that are teaching people how to lose weight. And I was like, I want to talk to the person where they're at right now. Instagram and Facebook, and now TikTok is one of my major platforms that I use. But I just started sharing my story. I started sharing my travels. I started sharing my tips. I started sharing my insecurities, especially me being able to share insecurities and being very vulnerable with people. It resonated. And like people were like, a lot of people started like hitting me up and DMing me and putting in my messages like, OMG, I have the same experience. I've had that same experience. Thank you for like giving me like the courage to actually get out there and travel. Like being able to like show that like me climbing the Pacaya in Guatemala, or me putting on a wetsuit and going great white shark diving in South Africa. Like, I never seen a fat person, one, scuba dive, and now I have, and that was me because I went scuba diving, or even putting on a wetsuit to go swim with sharks, like in South Africa. Like, that blew my mind. This trip isn't just about me. I'm not here just to engulf this whole experience, but I'm here to scout in a way, but to share this same experience that I'm having with other people all over the world.
That's our show. If you'd like to learn more about the guests we featured, check out our Facebook page at Shades of Us TV and online at tv.cuny.edu. I'm Darryl Brown. See you next time on Shades of Us.